Yeah? I just want to say that the City of London is committed to making every effort to provide alternate formats and communication supports for council, standing advisory committee meetings, and information upon request. To make a request for any city service, please contact accessibility@london.ca or 519-661-2489, extension 2425, and the mayor is in the building. And Elizabeth Pelosa. Thank you. Any disclosures of pecuniary interest? There being none, we will move on to the consent items, of which there's 2.1 to 2.8. Would anyone like a consent item pulled? No? Then I need a motion for the entire. Oh, Councillor Van Holst?
Well, I've got a couple of questions about things.
But you don't need them pulled?
Well, I think based on, I'm not sure. How about 2.7, 2.8?
Yeah, could you use your mic? Sorry. Yeah.
Perhaps you'd pull 2.7 and 2.8.
Any others to be pulled? All right, we'll put the rest of the matters on the list, which are 2.1 through to 2.6. If I can get a mover and a seconder. Moved by Councillor Lehman, seconded by Mayor Holder. While we're getting that up on the screen, any comments on any of the matters other than 2.7 and 2.8, councillors? Councillor Van Holst.
Yeah, I wanted to get a little clarification on 2.4. The company that applied to do our cured and paste sewer lining wasn't the same company that we had before, but it was the only company that met the technical requirements. So I was asking, I wanted to know if the technical requirements had changed, and or perhaps get some insight into why those requirements might not have been met by any of the other bidders.
Through the chair, just to address that question. We went through our normal procurement process, and we've actually been doing this type of a contract since 1989, so for quite a few years. What happens sometimes, and it's unfortunate, is that a vendor will provide documentation, but it won't be the full package that's required to be able to meet all the technical requirements of the process. So what happened with a couple of the vendors here is they did not provide all the information that was requested as part of the request. So they were not allowed to go to the next part of the process, which would be the grading portion and the actual opening of the cost. So in this case, it was really information from the vendors that wasn't provided. There were no changes to the process or the requirements. This was just them not fulfilling the requirements of the proposal process.
Okay, thank you. Now, I think our committee had encountered this kind of thing before, and we'd asked if, we'd try to make arrangements so that if something was missing, they might be approached about missing portions, and I believe that was done. Did they get an opportunity to know that they'd missed something?
Through the chair, just to clarify the question, so in this case, do you mean as a follow-up after the process to let them know why they didn't meet the requirements? Is that the question?
No, I guess I'm asking, is it our process, if orders come in non-compliant, or there's a line missing, something that hasn't been filled out, will we go back and say, we can't use this until you fill out this line, or do we get that? Do we get those corrections?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We have to be very careful when we approach vendors who are through a competitive bid process, because asking for information they have failed to submit when it has been clearly requested could be considered bid rigging or intervention in that process. There are some means that which purchasing can use to inquire about obvious errors. For example, they've got 10 units at $10 each, but they've accidentally put 1,000 as the total cost instead of 100. But to go back and say, you failed to submit major components of the proposal often will create issues with respect to the validity of the process. We would generally defer to purchasing with respect to whether or not that'd be appropriate.
Okay, well, thank you. It seems unfortunate when we get only one bid because of what might be purely technical reasons. Taxpayers might pay more, but I don't know.
Councillor Lehman.
Thank you, Chair. and this is to the staff regarding consent item 2.2. The operational plan for our city's water system. Good reading for an engineer. It seems quite thorough and professional. But as a non-engineer, I feel I have to ask, do you have a high confidence that this revised operational plan will continue to deliver the maximum in safety and water quality for the citizens of London?
The chair, we have exceptional confidence in this document and our plan. It is something that we, on an annual basis, are reviewing. We have external auditors. We have internal auditors also reviewing this document. So, and we have some of the, I'd suggest some of the national leaders with Dan Huggins up there hiding in the back, as far as the development of these types of standards. So I think we're very well positioned as far as having a very high quality document here.
Further on the consent items that haven't been pulled, Councillor Lewis.
Thank you, Chair, and through you to staff. I just want to confirm 2.6, the Dundas Place Thames Valley Parkway Active Transportation Connection. We got to come up with a short acronym for that. That is one of the next projects in line that came out of the direction from Council last spring with regard to accessing federal and provincial transit dollars, of course with municipal matching dollars included in there as well to improve our transportation network in the city. That's correct.
Through the chair, that is correct. It is one of the 10 transit and transit supportive projects that were submitted for and received federal and provincial funding through the ICIP, the infrastructure funding program.
Anything else on the items not pulled? All right, we have a mover and seconder, so we'll pull those, and those are items 2.1 through to 2.6. Voting. Councillor Van Holst? I'm sorry?
Yay.
Closing the vote, the motion carries 6-0.
And item 2.7, Councillor Van Holst?
Thank you. My question was about the leases we're making. I wanted to know how arm's length the two groups are. There's compared to each other. So it's Tourism London and the Urban Animal Management, Inc. are both getting a lease at cost for a vehicle. And just my concern is that I wanted to know a little bit more about Urban Animal Management, Inc. Is this owned by the city, like Tourism London might be?
Through the chair, so Urban Animal Management is the contractor that recently won the request for proposal to provide basically the urban animal welfare services here in London. They've actually had that contract probably for 25, potentially 30 years. So vehicles have been always part of the specification when we've gone out to the community for who wants to bid on these services. So the vehicles provided by the city have been included. So what was recently approved by council would have been pricing to deliver the service, knowing that the vehicles were going to be paid for by the city. It still is tied back to the budget operated by law enforcement. But it's just been the way that this service has been delivered over the years. There has not been a request to change that. It is rare. It is a organization that is not part of the city in any way. It is a contractor. And they bid on the process, knowing that the vehicles were going to be supplied. And what you see here is just the bylaw to confirm the leasing arrangement. So this is something that's been a longstanding practice with urban animal management. Tourism London is different. They are more closely tied into the city. And if I recall, stepping back in time, they may have actually been part of the city. And probably at that point in time, the vehicle was tied to them and was just carried with them when they went outside the city and are now financed differently. But same thing, they know, and as this council, that the vehicle is part of the contract. It is tied back to their budget, though. It is full cost recovery.
Okay, so thank you. So leasing vehicles at cost to contractors is not a widespread practice?
Through the chair, this is actually the only one that I'm aware of with the city right now.
Okay, thank you. I'm happy to move that.
I've been told to use my microphone.
Closing the vote, the motion carries 6-0.
And 2.8, Councillor Van Holst again?
Thank you. Just wanted to ask about the Elgin Street. This is 2.8. I have, apparently there is two Elgin Streets. I have one in my ward. It's got quite a few residents on it, so closing the street would have been a concern. This is another Elgin Street. And so I'm wondering when this is, there shouldn't be two streets named Elgin. So when this is closed and becomes part of a subdivision, and then that is reassumed, will this remain Elgin Street, or will it get a different name?
Mr. Chair, this will not be a street at all, so it will no longer require street naming. It'll become part of the new Kaleli Fields Park development.
Okay, that's great.
Are you prepared to move
This
that,
one.
Councillor?
Happy to, yes.
And seconder, Councillor Pelosa. Any further discussion? Call the vote. Way out of order.
Closing the vote, the motion carries 6-0.
She keeps pointing at the microphone. No scheduled items, no items for direction. I don't think there's anything coming from the deferred matters list unless committee has something. No, so we'll just have to move that. Have a mover for that, to receive that. Councillor Pelosa, seconded by Councillor Lehman. Anything further? Call the vote.
Is that just a veto?
Just receive, I think. Voting?
Closing the vote, the motion carries 6-0.
Before we go in camera, Councillor Lehman, you wanted to say?
This is our chairperson's last meeting, so I. Yeah, it's messy. So I think I speak for members of committee and for staff, saying thank you to Councillor Chairperson Squire for having a firm hand at the till. I think nothing was could be defined better than starting this meeting at exactly at 4 o'clock with no committee members in their chair. But for sure, you handled this very fair and professionally. And I take note as I fill in your shoes, your very large shoes.
That's very nice of you to say, and I'll pay you later, don't worry. I really enjoyed, I think people eventually got the idea that I was gonna stay here until they let me be chair. So this is my third year at Civic Works. I've been on one other committee for 3 years, but I love this committee. I'm leaving to try something else, but I really like engineers. Closest things to lawyers that I've sort of found in a professional, setting. In other words, let's just get to the facts. So I've really, really enjoyed it. And outside of the committee, whether I was chair or not chair, this area of the corporation is highly responsive to constituents' needs, and they've gone to so many meetings with me, standing on street corners, in parks, and it's really been helpful. So I'm going to miss this committee, and thanks to the members, great committee. And yes, I love starting the committee meeting when you're all still wandering around. That is like the best. So we now need a motion to go in camera. Oh. Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Chair. I'm not here to echo Councillor Lehman's comments. I think they're unusually articulate and to the point and very good, so well done. And, but if I'd like to do a shout out as an extension of your comments to staff. In this year, it's been an extraordinary year. A lot has happened, as we all know, as a committee. I was reflecting back this morning to a group about some of the accomplishments of this council overall. But I thought about Civic Works in particular, and I thought about the staff that have made this possible. So through you, Chair, I'd like to do that shout out to our staff and thank them for the great work they've done throughout this year.
That's very warranted. All right, anything further? I'm leaving a happy committee, that's great. I don't usually leave a room happy, but I will in this particular case. We need a motion to go in camera for the reasons set on the agenda. Councillor Pelosi, seconded by Councillor Lehman. We'll vote on the screen, and we'll adjourn from the committee room. I should have added after resuming public session.
Closing the vote, the motion carries 6-0.